Hey there, and welcome to the She Calls Her Shots podcast. Every week, we chat through different business building topics that will help you gain clarity around your goals, find inspiration in your journey, and also help you create a life and a business that you love. My name is Krista, and I'm a wedding and brand photographer and your go-to no-fluff business coach. In these episodes, we talk through both the tactical strategies, habits, and the mindset work that will help you take those really big leaps. And we always focus on the real talk and the behind the scenes of what it takes to create a sustainable and a thriving business. Because let's be honest, the work isn't always glamorous, but it's always worth it. So girlfriend, let's make some moves and start calling our own shots. Hello, and welcome back to this episode of the She Calls Her Shots podcast. Again, if you are watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. Hello and welcome. This video, YouTube podcast thing still feels really new to me, so thank you for being here. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much again for coming back and for joining in on these conversations with me and just having the honest and real talk behind the scenes of what it feels like to grow a business. And in this episode today, we are going to talk through my recap from my recent retreat that I went on with my business mentor. And the reason I wanted to share this with you, there are going to be some takeaways and some things that I learned that I think will be really helpful for you along your journey. But we're also going to talk through a little bit around what I walked away from the retreat knowing or feeling, or how I wanted to show up differently in my business and what that actually means for you as listeners, for you as clients. And just remembering the core basis to what it means to grow a business, right? How do we come back home to ourselves in order to create the success and the business that we want to create? And really just that reminder and how important it is. So first and foremost, let's just again, thank you so much for being here. The reason that I went on this retreat is I actually started working with my mentor my business coach and mentor at the beginning of the year, I believe. I had heard her speak at a conference that I attended in October. That was my first conference that I'd been to in a while, really since COVID, I think, actually, since everything opened back up again. And just the importance of getting in the room. I think that's the first thing I want to talk about today is if you have never been to an in-person, whether it's a retreat, a larger conference, if you haven't put yourself in a room with other creatives, other business owners, other people who are really on this journey with you and alongside you, so much magic happens when you say yes and you put yourself in those places. And I've known this. And so this was something that I knew that I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to attend this. It was a smaller retreat, this one that I just went on. I think there was about 40 people in total. The conference that I went to in October was around, I think, over 200. So that was much larger, but that's where I heard my business coach speak. And I also think it's important to note, I had heard her speak on a podcast interview a few years ago. And it's really interesting to me because when I heard her speak a couple of years ago on the podcast, her message really resonated with me. A lot of the things she talked about really resonated and kind of hit a special note with me. But at the time, I was really focused on kind of the hustle strategies, if I'm being completely honest with you. I still was in this place where I felt like I needed to have the strategies, the formulas, the outlines, I kind of was in just that place mentally where I wasn't ready to kind of intuitively grow my business. I think just because the imposter syndromes, the doubts, the fears, the people pleasing, all of that still had maybe a bigger hold on me at the time than I had really hoped that it would. And so there's a part of me that really just got stuck on strategies and things like that. And I overcomplicated my business, to be completely honest with you. I overcomplicated the strategies. I made things more difficult. And so this was a few years ago when I had first heard her. And I loved her message, but again, I think I needed to hear it, but I wasn't really ready to hear it and receive it. But when I went to this conference in October and I heard her speak, was in a much different place in my business. In the last couple of years, I've since started working with one-on-one clients, doing one-on-one coaching, doing group coaching. And so the way that I think about growing my business has shifted. I didn't have the podcast a few years ago, right? So I wasn't really confidently sharing my message and sharing my journey and connecting with other business owners in that capacity either. And so hearing her speak in October, I needed to hear it. And I think that's the important thing to remember, is that sometimes people enter our lives, we'll hear a message and we might have heard it before, but we might actually be ready to receive that message now and in this time. And I think it's important to honor that, right? So she came into my life in October again, and I knew this was the right time. This was I was ready energetically to be able to receive that message and to work closer with her. So we started working together in January, and I'm in her group coaching program, and I knew I wanted to attend this retreat. So that was something that was really important to me because I knew I wanted to get into a room. I also loved that it was going to be a smaller retreat where I could really get to connect and get to know other women and business owners. So the retreat was actually at the end of March. So I'm recording this mid-April. And so I'm a couple of weeks out, and I always like to give myself a little bit of time to process after a retreat, especially ones like this where there are a lot of feelings, there are a lot of emotions, there's a lot of business strategy that actually comes from it. Even though we didn't spend the majority of the time talking about business strategy, there was still a lot of strategies and ways. I walked away with ways that I wanted to show up differently in my business, even though we focused a lot on doing the inner work and just a lot of the deeper inner stuff that is actually really important and kind of, like I said, the core of how we actually grow our business. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So I did actually walk away with a lot of ways that I wanted to approach my business differently, but I wanted to share a couple of takeaways. I journaled, I don't know, probably 10, 12, if not more pages from the 2-day retreat that we had. But I wanted to share 2 specific topics that I really think will be relevant for you and really resonate with you. And the first thing is this idea that remembering that our entire journey as business owners is actually found in the day-to-day parts of our business and not the end goal, the place that we want to get to, right? Because the place that we want to get to is always going to be shifting out further and further and further. Because as you accomplish one goal, the next one comes after that. As you hit one money goal, the next money goal comes after that. As you work with X amount of clients, you're going to then want to move on and progress to working with more amount of clients. So, but the key here is that I think we focus sometimes so much on hitting this end goal that we forget who we want to be in the process and how we want to show up in the day-to-day and what that looks like. So that was a big takeaway for me. And I think that it sounds so simple when you say it out loud, right? It matters who you are in each day, in each moment. And you think, well, of course it does. But how often are we actually practicing that? How often are we actually living that out and giving space and energy to diving deep into asking ourselves, well, how am I showing up every day? What are the thoughts that I'm telling myself? What are the expectations I'm putting on myself? Am I actually enjoying the journey? Am I actually finding joy and celebrating the moments that might seem insignificant at the time, but are actually the shifts that help me accomplish the bigger things that I want to accomplish? And so really, when we can look at our business from that perspective of every single moment of every day of how I show up is actually the journey. It's not where I'm going, it's how I'm showing up and who I'm being every day. When we can look at it from that angle, I think we start to get really intentional then to recognizing our energy, like both our physical energy, like how we feel, based on how much sleep we're getting, based on how we're nourishing our bodies, right? Like our actual physical energy and just the energy that we are radiating out to others, right? Just like how you show up, your perspective, the words that you say, right? Like also that kind of energy really does, that's going to be the thing that creates success. Your physical energy and that other energy that you're putting out into the world. That's the thing that creates success. And yes, there are some best practices for strategies and whatnot, but you could have all of the best strategies you could implement. And if you're a creative and you've purchased any sort of course, you might have even had this experience. You can follow to a T what someone tells you to do that brought them success. You could buy into their formula, their strategy, whatever it is. You could follow it to a T, do all of the things that they said to do, and still not see the success that they said that they saw. And a lot of times we make that mean something about us. Oh, well, I must have done it wrong, or I didn't show up correctly, or I didn't do this part right. When really, their strategy and what worked for them does not mean that it's going to work for you, but on so many different levels. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just might mean that the way in which you were showing up maybe felt forced. Maybe you felt like, oh, I need to show up in this way. And because you did that, you weren't showing up authentically. And maybe your audience could feel that it didn't feel authentic. Maybe they could feel like, oh, I know you personally, or I know you well, and the way that you're showing up online doesn't really match. This strategy that you're implementing doesn't really match the person I know. And that could be the reason why sales didn't work or clients didn't work or whatever. And it has nothing to do with the strategy. You implemented it correctly, but it's just not the thing that's going to attract your clients. And so I think it's so important, and it's so backwards from what we think of, because we're often looking for the strategy, the thing that's going to work, the thing that's going to change our business, right? If we can just invest in this one course or understand this one concept, everything will open up for us. But the harder work, and oftentimes the more impactful work, is actually going to be when you can take a step back and say, what if everything that I already need is inside of me? And what if I just show up authentically day in and day out, get really curious, try things out, see what works, see what doesn't work. And here's the thing, you could create your own strategy. Maybe you have a launch or something that you are releasing that does really well, and your launch strategy or whatever it is that you did to release that product or service, maybe it just explodes and works really well. You could even at a future time try and do that exact same strategy again, and it may not work exactly the same, right? So it's remembering that what if there is no one right way? What if the journey, what if my energy, what if just how I'm showing up and the way that I'm connecting and relating with people, what if that is the strategy? And what if I release everything else that's telling me it needs to look a certain way or feel a certain way or post a certain amount of times? How much more freeing would that feel? And how much more will I be able to show up more often, more frequently, because I've now taken off the weight. I've taken off this belief that it has to look a certain way. And so just coming back to the vision, the goals, the success, all of the things that you want to have in your business, remembering that goal point is always going to shift further and further back as you grow. And there's never going to be a point in time where you feel like, oh, I've made it. I'm there. Good. Don't have to do anything anymore. That's never going to happen. Realistically, if you're a business owner, you're always wanting to grow. You're always wanting to expand and do more things, help more people. And just remembering that, oh yeah, the thing that's actually more important is not the strategy, not the formula, not the whatever strategic thing that people are trying to sell me on. The more important thing is, what value am I adding to people on a regular basis? And how can I create a lifestyle that naturally enhances my creativity, that allows me to own my creativity, to become more confident in myself so that I can be more visible, share more value, connect with more people? That's the strategy that we want to focus on. And that's what I work so often with my clients on, is let's ditch this idea that it has to look a certain way. And let's figure out, how do you live in a place where you feel like your creativity is at its peak? You feel like your confidence is at its peak. You feel like you are just able to create and to give and to add value. And not to say that every day will feel like that. There are going to be some days where you maybe don't feel as creative, and that's totally okay. But you take that pressure off yourself, because again, it doesn't need to look a certain way. So that's the first point. That's kind of one of the surrounding themes or topics that we talked about throughout the weekend. But a second thing, which was actually this I wrote down, and this was a really interesting point for me. And this is one of the reasons why I love my coach and mentor so much. And this is the type of coach and mentor that I want to be for my clients. Is she actually shared a story, and she didn't go into the details, so I don't know exactly what happened, but essentially what someone kind of hinted at was that, so she has a lot of success. She has made a lot of money in her business. Like, I'm not going to go into her numbers. Her name's Amber Liliestrom. I'll link to her below. You can go online, you can find her, you can research her. She has created a lot of success in her business. But the thing that I love about her, and the way that my goal is to be with my clients, is that she doesn't pretend like things just naturally come easier or things always work out for her. That's not the vibe that she puts off. That's not the message that comes across with her. And so someone had hinted at the fact that, so she had planned this retreat, and I guess something happened where when they got there, either the stage wasn't set up correctly or there was something that was wrong. And it was literally like the doors were going to be opening in the next 20, 30 minutes for all of the attendees to come in. And so everyone, herself included, kind of had to bootstrap and be like, this isn't what it's supposed to look like. Like, this needs to be changed. We need to fix this and this thing. And she kind of, it sounds like, because again, I don't know the details, like she kind of had to get her hands dirty and get in and do things. And the over kind of the message around this is that when you run a retreat or an event or a workshop or anything that feels like this really glamorous thing that other people would look at like, oh, wow, you just hosted this whole thing. The behind the scenes of it is often a lot messier and put together than people realize. And she's talked about this where in past retreats, right? Like where if they're handing out things or there's things that she has built or set up herself, she's then at the end of the day, she puts her sneakers on, she's gathering everything, carrying a bunch of stuff out to her car after everybody leaves, right? And it's this idea that no matter how much success you have, or no matter how much success this perception that people have of what this number of followers or money or whatever that means about you, at the end of the day, you are still a human and things are going to happen. And it's how you choose to perceive those things is really where the difference is made. Because if you believe that at some point you will hit some level of success or perceived success, and let's say, for example, you are hosting a retreat and things don't look the way that you need to, right? You can take one of a few ways of approaching that. And one way is getting really frustrated and, having this belief of like, oh, I can't believe this happened. Everything is ruined, like kind of going down that negative spiral. Or you can be like, well, here we are, right? And you get your hands dirty and you fix it and you make it as best as it can. And you just believe that this is going to be enough and this is going to be what people need. And we're just going to let this roll and we're going to go with the flow. And when you can approach your business in that perspective, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how much success or perceived success you have based on other people. You are going to feel so much more fulfilled as a business owner. But I think sometimes when we're in the beginning stages, when we're in the scrappy stages, we kind of do subscribe to this belief of, oh, well, when I have a certain amount of money, things will look different or feel different. Or when I have a certain amount of clients, things will look different or feel different. The truth is, it's all going to feel the same because it's how you choose to perceive and look at the things that are happening in your business. And it's those shifts that really are going to make or break whether you feel successful at the end of the day. The money that you're making right now can be enough if you choose to say that it's enough. The amount of clients you have can be enough if you choose to believe that it's enough. And so really just starting to shift our mindset to remembering that where I am right now can be enough if I let it be. And I'm not choosing to believe that some level of success or some level of money or income or clients or anything is going to change my life or make anything different. I'm still going to experience the same setbacks or resistance points or challenges. And it's just all on how I perceive to look at those challenges. So that was just a really beautiful takeaway that I had that I felt compelled to share, because I think sometimes we subconsciously subscribe to that belief. We might not actively think that things are going to be different, but sometimes subconsciously we think, well, if only I had more money, or if only I had more clients. And it's just that little perspective shift of, what if this is enough? And what if I let this be enough for right now? So that was the second thing that I wanted to share around kind of the takeaways that I had from the retreat. There were so many more. Like I said, I journaled for days and days, but I also wanted to share kind of some of the things that I actually walked away with tangibly that I want to do differently in my business. And some of this will affect you as listeners. Some of this will affect if you choose to work with me. So a couple of things have actually changed. Number one, I have a group coaching program called Amplify. And if you're not familiar with it, it is a very intimate group of other women creative entrepreneurs. And every month I host 2 live group coaching calls. And so usually what that looks like is, for the first 10-15 minutes, I'll come on and I'll share a business topic, a business theme, a way of shifting your perspective around something, right? So you can almost think about it as the topics that I talk about on my podcast, a condensed version that I share more one-on-one with my group coaching clients. And so we'll have space to be able to talk about that. We'll share some wins around what's going on in their businesses, and then we go into group coaching. So if there's something that they're struggling with, if they are having a money mindset block, if they're feeling a lot of resistance towards something, if they have a challenge that they're working through, this is a space for them to be able to have space to be able to share that. And so even though it's group coaching, I still want it to feel really intimate and like people can get that one-on-one support. So we have those 2 group coaching calls, 1 hour every single month. And we have a Facebook group and a community so we can connect, and I can also show up there and do more coaching inside of the group in between our calls. But one thing I realized, and that's always been really important to me, is the importance of really knowing my clients. And when I work with someone one-on-one, so I also have one-on-one offers, and I work with clients one-on-one right now. And actually, as you're watching or listening to this, I do have a couple of spaces. I think I have maybe 2 spaces that have just recently opened up. So if you're interested in this, I've got a couple of options, group or one-on-one, if that's something you're interested in. But I do work one-on-one with clients. And when I work one-on-one, of course, we get a lot more one-to-one FaceTime, and I really get to know intimately their business, their goals, where it is that they want to go. And it's a very intimate, we have Voxer support, so audio and text support one-on-one in between our 2 calls per month as well with my one-on-one clients. But it was important for me. I want to know my Amplify, my group coaching clients as well. It's just as important for me to know what are your goals? Where do you want to grow? What are the things that are currently feeling really challenging to you? And so I decided from now until the end of the year, which who knows what 2024 will look like, but I've decided right now that for 2023, from now until December, that all of my Amplify group coaching clients, if they're not already one-on-one clients, if they're just only in my group coaching program, I want to offer them 20-minute one-on-one calls with me every single month. So 1 20-minute call every month. And the purpose around this is because I realized I want to know them intimately. I want to know what it is that's going on in their business. I don't want the group coaching calls to feel like there's gaps or I don't understand, where it is that they want to go. And one thing I realized was I've had the option to do that from the beginning. But I found myself modeling my program based on what I saw other people doing. And sometimes we get feedback from other people who tell us, oh, that's too much, or that's not enough, or you shouldn't offer that. That's giving too much. Or, oh, well, if you're going to offer that, you should raise your prices. And so we hear all these stories from other people around what things should or shouldn't look like. And I walked away from this retreat realizing this group coaching can look whatever the heck I want it to look like. I can create this program in a way that feels really good for me. And it doesn't matter what anyone else's thoughts or opinions are. And so that was one thing that I walked away from that I feel so excited about, because the fact that I can give more value to my group coaching clients and the price doesn't change, nothing is any different. They can still make monthly payment plans. It can still be very approachable and easy for them to join. And I can make this look however I want it to look because it's my business and there's a lot of freedom in that. So that was one thing that came out from this weekend. Another thing that came out from this weekend was the realization that I really love, if you can't tell from this podcast, I love really doing educational training things, right? I mean, I wouldn't have a podcast if I didn't, but I've also done workshops in the past that were really kind of hands-on, interactive one-on-one workshops where it's a blend of me showing up to teach and talk about something. So you can think kind of similar to podcast episodes, but even more tangible, where it's like, hey, let's work through this process together. Let's, if you join this workshop with me live, you will actually get like real-time support from me as we work through this topic, this theme, this training, whatever it might be. And so I've done this before, but it was a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago since I've done my last interactive workshop. And I realized that's something I'm really passionate about. And so I'm really excited because that's something that I'm going to be offering again now moving forward. So I have plans in the next probably 6 weeks to offer my first interactive live workshop. So again, we'll be sending out information. You can join the Zoom link and there'll be a topic that we'll be teaching and training and working on together, but you'll also get real-time support. So you'll walk away from the workshop having actually accomplished something and made progress on something in your business, and get that interactive support as we work on it together. So I actually just sent an email out to my list this week around which topic would be most beneficial for them. So there's a few options. I want to make sure in the spirit of giving that this is going to be something that's beneficial for you. So if you are not already on my email list, please go to heychristinamarie.com, and at the very top, you'll see a button for join the email list, and join. And then send me a message, send me an email, Krista@heychristinamarie.com. Let me know if this training, if these workshops, these live interactive workshops would be helpful for you. And I will also ask you which one would be most beneficial for you. Because again, I think there's so much power in podcast episodes are amazing. And there's so much information that you can get from them. But there's something really special about actually working through it in real time with someone and getting feedback and getting more information and more clarity and getting to bounce ideas off of a real person in real time as you're doing it. So if that's something you'd be interested in, my heart is in teaching and educating and giving away free content. Like, this is why I have the podcast. I don't feel like every single thing needs to be paid. And so if that's something that brings joy to you, it brings a lot of joy to me. And so join my email list. I'll send you the email and we can figure out, let me know that this is something that you're interested in. You can also connect with me on Instagram @HeyChristaMarie. And let me know that this is something you're interested in. I'll send you all the different topic ideas and you can let me know what would be most beneficial for you. The other thing, the last thing that's kind of I walked away from realizing I wanted to do more of are little mini podcast episodes, because I love doing these longer form, like this one today, longer form podcast episodes, 25, 30 minutes. But I think there's a lot of value that can also be gained from shorter episodes. Sometimes you just don't have the time. Sometimes you just want to be able to listen to something quick that's kind of more of a pep talk, kind of one specific topic that you want to get some inspiration or education around. And so that's something I want to be implementing. So on top of also adding video, which again, hi YouTube. And on top of adding video, I would like to say that all of my episodes moving forward will have video. We will see. I will try to do it as often as I can, as often that feels really good to me. But that's my goal and my intent, is to do more video content for YouTube and share more on Instagram as well. But that said, where was I going with that? Shorter podcast episodes. So I want to release more frequently for the podcast, because right now with the longer episodes, I'm only releasing one per week. And so my goal is that eventually I'll get to a point where I am releasing at least 2 episodes per week, one of them being a mini episode and one of them being a normal episode. So those are my takeaways. Those were really the overarching theme, and how I walked away from that weekend was realizing, number one, it's my business and I can structure it however I want. And it doesn't really matter what other people's opinions are, or what they think is a good idea or not a good idea, because at the end of the day, what really matters is what feels good and aligned to me. So number one, that. And number two, I just love giving free content. I love pouring into my audience. I love connecting with you on this level. So how can I do that in more ways? Well, again, group coaching and the podcast, and also workshops. And so those were the big takeaways that I had. I just can't wait for what that means for how we can connect more one-on-one in the future. I want to get to know you more. I want to get to know what your challenges are, where you're growing, and how I can help support you along that journey. So all of that said, I can't wait. This is going to be such an amazing rest of the year. This retreat really was what I needed to fill up my soul, to really connect and just get to know other women business owners. I think there's so much joy in the connections and relationships that you build when you put yourself in the room with other people. That actually might be the title that I put of the episode, is the importance of putting yourself in the room. Just say yes. And it's actually really funny because the first day, Amber actually was asking people, and a couple people were asking each other, what are you hoping to take away from this retreat? What's your goal? What's the thing that you want to walk away from with? And I've learned from going to enough retreats or conferences at this point, my goal is to just be open to receive whatever it is that I'm meant to receive. Because just like the conference I went to in October, I thought that I would have a certain takeaway, and I walked away with a completely different takeaway, but it was the takeaway that I needed. And so what I've learned is it's just the importance of putting yourself in the room and being open that whatever needs to present itself to you, whatever it is that you need to hear and walk away with, you will walk away with. And it might be very different from whatever expectations you thought you had. So just being open, saying yes to the opportunity, putting yourself in the room, and just being open to whatever it is that might come from that. So what a joy, man. This is only the second video interview or second video podcast I've done. And I'm not going to lie, I was really nervous because I've not recorded myself doing podcast episodes. I've recorded audio, and I was really nervous, I'm not going to lie, about what the video would feel like. And I'm already realizing this is so life-giving. I love it. This is so great. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening in. I would love to hear your takeaways. If those points that I messaged or that I talked about earlier resonated with you, send me a message, connect with me. Let me celebrate that with you. And let's just celebrate this growth and this journey that we're on together. So thank you again for listening in. And I can't wait to see you over in the next episode. One last thing before you go. I'd absolutely love it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. Or if you've already left a review, I'd love for you to share this episode with your business bestie. I love getting to shout out my listeners on the show, and the more listeners that we have, the more that I can help others create a thriving and sustainable business too. Thank you so much again for being a part of this community, and I can't wait to hear your takeaways from today's episode.